All right, gents, welcome in. It's post Road Atlanta show. Yeah, first post race pod. See how this goes. We're getting better every week. Look at us. We got lights, we got microphones, we got cameras. We're rolling. Yeah, fresh back. We're a little late on this one than what I think we'll typically be, but recording on Thursday. And yeah, James, how was your weekend in Road Atlanta? And how was your post Road Atlanta trip?
Yeah, I mean, Road Atlanta is it's probably one of the most difficult tracks on the circuit. It's definitely the most strenuous, and you have to be very, very calculated. It's a very interesting track. It's been around for a long time, and it hasn't aged well. But for me, it was a decent weekend. I went faster than I've ever been there on a bagger, and it just still wasn't good enough. So yeah, it's a bit bittersweet. We did the recap at the show at the track there, and everybody kind of got the bit of a gist of it. But yeah, it's pretty hard to leave Road America knowing what was coming on Monday. So all in all, getting engaged and proposing to my girlfriend, now fiance. So everything's pretty Gucci in my life at the moment.
Nice. And Corey, how about you? How was your weekend? Looked like you were out at Chuckwalla.
Yeah, I was out of Chuckwalla. It was a little depressing not to be there, to be honest with you. So it's always tough to watch from home, but at the same time, it was kind of fun, like to be a fan for the weekend. And we had it going in the background while we were riding all day and whatnot. So yeah, it was good, and the racing was definitely like I don't know, it wasn't as I predicted in some ways. In certain ways, it was, but it was definitely like things were a bit more shooken up than I was anticipating in kind of all the classes, honestly. So it was cool though to watch your stuff from home too. Though that was like it was definitely nice. Like I think as more and more people caught on that you were doing that stuff over the weekend, like you could see the traction kind of grow, which was cool to watch, like the engagement and just people sharing it. But in general, like the stuff was super good. That's what we've been missing for sure.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's the goal. I feel like Road Atlanta was a really good representation of what the baseline will be every week, and now we can build from there. I've got some fresh ideas that I want to add to the mix at Barber, and yeah, dude, I'm stoked on it. I'm stoked honestly for everybody's support, riders, fans, everybody. The series has been super helpful and just open to let me do kind of whatever I want to do. So it's good, man. I'm really thankful. Every like, every comment, every share, every collab, except that the riders are putting on, it helps so much. So yeah, looking forward to keep building. But the numbers were really good this weekend, so I'm excited to see that, and just excited to keep the momentum going, and little less of a break now, so I can kind of stay in the groove, and got some video stuff I want to add in just to keep it fresh. But yeah, it was good overall. And Atlanta itself, I feel like was really really good overall. I walked over the bridge on Thursday and was like, whoa, there's like 14 semis in the paddock. This is starting to look a little more like the old days. So that felt cool. And the paddock vibe was good. The attendance was cool. James, did you check out the Superbike 45-minute grid walk thing that they're doing on Hot Pit this year?
So yeah, I was able to see a little bit of that, and I thought that was awesome. Like, it felt like Daytona 200 vibes,
Yep.
where they just let everybody. And it felt like because it wasn't on the track, that it was just a little bit more accessible, and they're making a little bit more VIP. I know that contradicts itself, but VIP in the fact that it's you get it a little bit more, but also accessible, where there's more, just an abundance of people, especially on Saturday. I thought Saturday's attendance, the
Yeah.
weather was absolutely crazy. Our tet near Harley Davidson, for autograph sessions and post just the races, there was a corral of people. You couldn't even get the bike out. Like, it was really, really, really good attendance on a Saturday.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I think people were a little weary of the weather on Sunday, but still, even though it was really good attendance, and like you said, that 45-minute grid walk thing, they're doing it. Corey, I don't know if you saw any of that from home, but they're doing it on Hot Pit, so that my understanding from the conversation that I had was that kids are allowed because it's not on track, and there's no closed-toed shoe pants type rules at any of the tracks. So it's just basically pretty wide open. I mean, Yamaha kind of nailed it in having stanchions set up around JD and Bobby, because it got super tight and congested in there. I went live on Instagram for a minute, which I think is something that I'm going to start doing too from those grid walks, just kind of grabbing people, doing a little walk and talk. I was interviewing some of the Talent Cup kids, just letting people, get their fix from home right before the race starts. So keep an eye out for that if you're watching from home at any of the rounds. But yeah, overall pretty good. I had one little note. There was quite a few crashes this weekend. I'm going to guess, and maybe you guys can kind of confirm these thoughts, but the track was greasy. And like you said, James, the track is a little beat up these days. So what, from a rider's perspective, do you guys see out of that?
From me, my point of view, it's I think one that the pace is extremely hot, right? Like everybody from FP1, I think a lot of the FP1s from previous year were like half second to a second faster. Superbike itself was 24.3, I believe, which was extremely fast in the first practice. And I will say we saw a lot of crashes in weird places, right?
Yeah.
Like not the normal places at Road Atlanta that you would see. I think it being greasy is definitely part of that. And there's a little bit of a change in tire, right? Like they're starting to introduce the Japanese tires, not just in super sport, and then the other classes. And I think that it's just catching people out a little bit. Even in the bagger, we saw some Herfoss crash, like almost, I wanted to say straight up and drown, but very, very late into turn 10, and then Kyle in turn 12 very, very late. So two very uncharacteristic crashes for those boys that normally don't really kind of crash. So I would agree with you there. Very, very weird crashes for a lot of top boys that don't normally crash.
Yeah. PJ's crash was crazy, obviously, but that seemed to be a little bit more, just got into a weird spot as opposed to a tire issue. But Corey, what did you see from home?
Yeah, same. I mean, I was attributing a lot of that to the new tire, right? Because I don't think, has anyone really been on that R4? It was an R4 you guys were running on the front?
No, we've got an R6 now, and then
It's an R4 R6, right?
Yeah,
Two
no,
options.
we have an American R3 and an R6 now. So you can either run the American R3, which is very soft, or you can run the R6, which is more R5 US, but also it's still a little, doesn't feel exactly the same.
That was across all the classes. I didn't look at the allocation sheet, but like Superbike was on
Superbikes has Japanese tires, both I believe in the front and the rear, that they've introduced.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of feel like that's part of it. I would have to guess like some of those crashes definitely seem like something new is in the mix. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it was interesting to watch. It was definitely seemed like an expensive weekend for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I know Ashton Yates had a big one. That bottom of the hill section caught a couple people out. Caught Ella Dreyer out pretty good. She got off really lucky, headed at the wall there. And what is that, turn 4? Scary spot to crash. And I know Ashton reposted a clip of his crash. It was pretty hectic too. And then Hank Fosberg crashed coming down the hill on his Twins Cup bike. We didn't really get to see the crash so much, but I could tell by the way he was hobbling when he got up. We'll talk about it later, but yeah, he must have went over the top pretty good. So yeah, weird weekend on that front. But yeah, other than that, I mean, Road Atlanta is always fun. It's always full of people. The hillside's packed, and it's just good to be there. So let's jump into it, boys. We'll breeze through the Talent Cup here. Another dogfight of a weekend. It's just what we're going to see from this class. I think this year there's 4 to 5. We had a fifth rider jump in the mix here this weekend and grab a podium, which was super cool. Rossi Garcia. So yeah, it could be 5-way here pretty quick. Not sure if Rossi's been to any of the upcoming tracks, but yeah, good to see another face in the mix. Kensei Matsudaira swept the weekend going 1-1. And Nathan Gauker was 3-2. Nathan led a heap of laps. I would have to go back and look, but I know he had an issue in the first race where he didn't see the white flag. So he was kind of setting himself up for what he thought was the last lap, and it was already the last lap. lesson learned there. He was pretty bummed on himself. He came out swinging and tried to break the group in race 2, and yeah, just narrowly got edged out by Kensei. Kensei's, he's a ripper, dude. And when he smells blood, you could see it on the last lap. He was just full send, and he managed to get it done. But those two are definitely going to go head to head for the year. Jake Page struggled a bit with edge grip all weekend. Yeah, but still flying. I think he set the lap record, which is 2 for 2 for him on lap records. So we clearly got pace out of the young Aussie. And then, like I said, Rossi Garcia with a breakout ride in race 1, and then had a rear rotor come apart as he pulled up to the starting line. So he got lucky that he got to the grid when that happened. It didn't happen in lap 1. So yeah,
saw that. That was insane.
Yeah,
I don't even know how that happened, especially on a bike like that, because it's not like you're putting a lot of force through the rear brake. I doubt they even use the rear brake on those things.
Yeah, it would be. I would think that you're not using much rear brake, if any. So yeah, it was a weird one. I was just watching that race 1 where he podiumed, and was watching with Rocco Landers, and we were just commenting on the kid has so much roll speed, like his ability to carry through the corners. And I saw it even early in the weekend as I was shooting on Friday. He's rolling really good. So it's cool to see it, man. That's what it takes in that class. And yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes. Tough go for Sam Drain. He ended up leveling out, but he had a big one on Friday. I believe it was on the twin, a big crash. So he just kind of was up and down through the weekend. But I mean, look, Sam's going to be there. He's a ripper. He's got the right group in his corner with the Estenson team. So yeah, it's definitely heating up in the Talent Cup.
I think Kensei really showed his speed at Coda, and really showed how calm, cool, and collected he was. I mean, he was really at Coda the guy that I thought that was just riding, I would say, more mature, right? Maybe the most mature in the class. And to see him sweep this weekend doesn't really, it's kind of, I wouldn't say expected, but I would say that he, is just carrying that momentum. Jake Page, we saw how much speed that guy has. He's got a ton of raw speed, and I think he's just still figuring it out, right? Like, he carries a ton of lean angle, runs wide a lot. Still, for me, I think he just needs more time on the bike and more time, during the races. And, that sort of edge grip can just be a little bit of a timing thing, right? Of just when is he picking up the gas, and, a little bit of a feel thing. Sam Drain, definitely the odd one for me. I thought he would be super competitive, especially here. But I also think that I've caught some wind that he's carrying an injury, previously training before he even showed up. So I think maybe he's just kind of biding his time a little bit and trying to heal a little bit. And if you said he crashed, I didn't even know he crashed on the twin, then that definitely is going to put him out. But I'm stoked to see that they're breaking the lap records and that they're extremely fast. And it just shows you that, hey, DeMario wasn't this actually like set the bar so high and nobody's coming through. It's good to see that these kids are breaking the lap records, and that there's a group, there's a crop, 3 4 guys coming through. And I think that should give a lot more interest to the guys underneath, from 5 to 10, that, hey, this is the right path. And I think it also shows MotoAmerica this is a good path, that they can kind of pick where they want to go. If they want to go more prototype or more production, this is a really good stepping stone. And somebody from me who's teammates with Bradley Smith, who grew up on 125 GPs, we go to certain corners when I look over his data, and you can just see the 125 that has just been ingrained into him. There's certain corners like turn 6 there where he just had like 4 mile an hour on me. And I'm like, dude, I can't even see it. But that's just all that like 125 experience of, the bike being through a corner like that. That's, if you got the cojones and know how to take a corner like that, it just shows. So I think it's great experience.
Yep.
Was one of the kids Rocco's sibling?
Yeah, Rocco's sister is riding.
That's what I thought I saw.
Yep.
There's like a fleet of them, so you never know.
Bandit Landers, yeah. And she's figuring it out quick too. Like she's making huge improvements, throughout the weekend. And obviously Rocco's right there with her the whole time. And I mean, Rocco's dad's a ripper too. So, but yeah, it's cool to see her there figuring it out. She's also like, I think I just caught on Instagram yesterday. She's like winning tournaments in grappling and jujitsu. So she's clearly a badass. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see her out there. Cole Schaefer's out there. He's a flat track kid, I think like 5-time national flat track champ. So flat track kid that's just trying it out. He's got Doug Chandler in his corner on a Doug Chandler racing bike. So yeah, it's cool to see the legends, Kenny and Kenny Jr. too, just right there in victory circle with Kensei celebrating. So it's, the classes, people are going to say what they're going to say. And, there's a negative stigma kind of across the whole paddock. And this is something we could talk about at the end of this, but there's just negativity and there doesn't really need to be with this class. I mean, it's great racing. Yeah. The bikes are different from what we're used to, but it's producing great racing and the kids are sharpening their iron against each other. And like you said, I think Kensei's spent a bunch of time overseas and has kind of got that world experience. So yeah, it's looking good talent cup wise in my mind.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think people's biggest thing with the class is just that there are 12 kids.
Yeah.
That's the toughest thing to watch, I would say. But otherwise, the racing is definitely more so than years past. It looks like this year is going to be a good entertaining year, and who knows what the future brings. I don't know what the deal is with Kramer and stuff, but like you said, we can get into that later.
Yeah, definitely. As the season goes on, I talked to Joe from Kramer quite a bit over the weekend, and just good to be building a relationship as it is with everybody in the paddock. But good to have some conversations and see what they're dealing with, and yeah, more to come on that for sure. But
I also think they just I mean, it's hard to just one and done. The people that made the investments, right, like into those bikes. I think everybody. Listen, they're still expensive. It's still expensive to go racing, but a year on, it seems like it's gotten closer, right? There wasn't not just one outlier. And to be honest, that's what we need. We just need close racing. You can't touch much, and like everybody can get the same stuff, and just see what the kids can do.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. We'll move on to Twins Cup. It was an interesting weekend for Twins Cup. Obviously, the racing's, I mean, we're going to say this with every class, broken record stuff, but the racing was really good across all the classes, tight racing everywhere. I'll run through a little recap here. For race one, Hank Fosberg and Bodie Page kind of cleared off at the front, and they had it out pretty good. It looked like it was going to be a last lap showdown, and in the last few laps, red flag came out and ended the race after 5 laps. So yeah, it ended up being Hank Fosberg, Bodie Page, and Logan Cunnison, who was kind of an outlier for me, had a really, really good race. Ended up crashing in race 2, but good to see another name again in the mix. And then Kyle Onsor was 4th, Isaac Woodworth with a 5th. Again, the outliers here that we would have expected to be a little closer, one of them being Sam Drain, the other being Matthew Chapin. I know Matthew was having power issues in race 1, which then plagued something similar, plagued Bodie Page. So I don't know what they may or may not be dealing with. But yeah, they were just having power delivery issues, whether it's fuel pump or whatever it was, don't know. Chapin ended up 11th, and I think Sam Drain got 6th. So that was race 1. And then in race 2, it looked like it was going to be more Hank Fosberg as he worked his way through, but he sent himself to the ground early on. He picked it back up, got going, and Bodie Page and Matthew Chapin cleared off at the front. Drain was in 3rd, so it looked like he was going to have a good run at it, and then a red flag. So it was wild to be in the pits. You had Hank's team getting his stuff back together. He ends up going back out first row of the grid. So that worked out in his favor. And then Bodie Page was, like I said, dealing with an issue with the bike. So they were like swapping a gas tank, minimal tools on pit. It was pure chaos that and a miracle that he even got out there. Like they were seconds away from not making it. So good on the team for getting him out there. Unfortunately, it didn't really solve his problems. But what ended up happening was Vosberg again got to the front. He ended up second behind Chapin, who had a flyer of a go there at the end. So he checked out and won. Vosberg got third, and Bodie Page was trying to keep a pack behind him as he dealt with power issues. It was pretty gnarly. He was riding the wheels off the thing through the first sector, so that was cool to see. And then it ended up being Kevin Olmedo, which was my feel good story of the weekend, man. Kevin Olmedo goes from being paralyzed just, less than 2 years ago, I believe, got diagnosed with Guillain-Barré and was paralyzed as he was just getting into the super sports scene. And he's back, dude. Podium. And he's not done. He's not settling. He's like, I want to win. He's like, I want to win the Twins Cup and I want to be right back in super sports. So yeah, wild one for Twins Cup. Corey, what do you got Twins Cup wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of speaking on the Kevin Olmedo thing, like that whole story is just honestly insane. I don't know what caused it. I know it's like a pretty rare autoimmune thing, but
yeah,
just unbelievable, really. And so I can't imagine how that feels to come back. It was cool to see his interview. I think MotoAmerica interviewed him afterwards. So
yeah.
That was special. But yeah, as far as the racing goes, I didn't catch a ton of the Twins Cup stuff. I did see the results, and I just think that, it was one of those things that's definitely a little bit of a shakeup. I think Matthew Chapin kind of seems like the favorite. It's just a matter of the bike issue thing. So it wasn't really super surprising to see him make his way back up front on Sunday. Definitely curious to know what those issues are. You would think that they'd have that Suzuki figured out by now pretty well. So it's a little interesting, but I don't think did they change any of the rules in that class this year? I don't think so, right? It's
I don't think so.
The same deal. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Interesting to know what they're playing with over there, whatever the case is. But
yeah,
I'm a fan of Matthew Chapin, so it was cool to see him back on the top
for sure. James, how about you? What you got Twins Cup wise?
Yeah, I just want to say I think this series is getting definitely more and more legit. This class, when you've got Road Racing World or M4 Suzuki now had Bodie Page, Chapman, Vosberg. I think is still sponsored by your old team, Tytler's Man. I think there's a little bit of help from him now. I think so. You've got Sam Drain from Essendon. Like when you start looking at it, this class now is becoming very, very, very like our super sport days, where there's a good opportunity for kids that either come out of Talent Cup or get handpicked and can get into these teams and kind of get that team vibe, get around, mechanics, crew chiefs, learn the way, get out of dad's hands. And it gives the people that are, Kelvin Olmedo or, Logan, even the more privateer kids, it gives them a good opportunity to try to get in. So I'm stoked on this class. I think this class is really, really good. I think them continuing to hopefully reduce, some of the costs in there. Cause I know when I raced it with Gene that it was like these Twins Cubs bikes are absolutely crazy expensive. So if they continue to do that, I really, really enjoy this class. It always provides amazing racing. I would agree that I believe Matthew Chapman is, probably one of the favorites, but Vosberg last year, remember, like he doesn't have a lot of time. He only came on the scene in the middle of last year, if I remember correctly, and was fast right away. So I think we're going to go to some different tracks here where it's going to get another shakeup. And I think with some of the issues, it kind of makes the championship awesome, with Chapman going 11-1. I mean, that's huge. So, and they're kids still, right? There's a lot of mistakes still happening. I remember Matthew last year was, very, very fast. And I remember at the Ridge was extremely fast, but had a few crashes. So they're always learning. And yeah, I'm a big fan of this class. Even being able to ride with them, right? Like I rode with still, probably not these kids, but when I did make, my comeback, I rode with some of these kids, and I mean, dude, it's fast out there. Like it's good to see.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the results. It's basically the top 11 were all within 3/10 best lap wise, more or less, and then finish within 6.5 seconds, 6.6 seconds
Yeah,
back to
dude.
11. So it's pretty tight. I also do have to give a shout out to Chris Parrish. I mean, I don't know how old that dude is, but he's out there ripping with the youngsters. It's pretty. It's pretty
awesome.
cool to see him back up there. The last
Yeah.
few years, he hasn't really been as competitive, but for whatever reason, he was mixing it up at Atlanta. So I think he won the inaugural year of the class, right?
He's
like
he was like the guy.
the OG champ.
Yeah.
So
But,
it's kind of funny.
Anthony,
To see.
is that Kyle Onsorg actually the bagger Kyle Onsorg?
Sure is.
Wait, so what is he?
No way.
I didn't realize he was racing twins.
Yeah, racing twins. Got a 4th, I believe. Is that what I have on here? Yeah, got a 4th.
Nice.
Love to see that. I'm definitely he's one of the guys that I have not caught up with yet on the Road Race Report side. So I've got a few of them that I'm looking forward to catching over the next few rounds. But yeah, man, he's
it's
clearly
awesome.
got the twin figured out. So,
but it's awesome. It's great to see. Like I'm a full fan of, people are like, oh, you shouldn't cherry pick classes, this, that, and the other. Like, this isn't about Kyle, but I'm a fan of, fast people being in classes. It pushes the level, and if the kids, whoever it is, they're talented enough, they're gonna break through, and they're gonna do it. And it's a clear indication of how we can find fast people. So I'm a big fan.
Stack the class, dude. Look at back 2004. You look across Super Sport, like, dude, there's heavy hitter names in every class. A lot of those guys were riding 2-3 classes a weekend sometimes, right? On a factory deal. I'm with you. And Heron said that early in the weekend. He was like, dude, I don't look at this as like being demoted to Super Sport. Like, look at the names in the class this year. I'm here making money, fighting for a championship. It's good by me, and I think that, we've got into this stepping stone phase where it's like, dude, I'm with you. Fill the classes, get as many quick guys up there, especially in a Twins Cup class where, the kids are sharpening their iron, right? Like it's good. It's good to see it. My quick thoughts on the Twins Cup. I mean, Hank's consistency, Vosberg's consistency, and a little bit of luck on Sunday really went a long way this weekend. Like you guys had said, we saw a mixed bag of results, right? It's a little bit like 250 motocross where the results are just up and down, and consistency rewards that. So Hank leaves with a 23-point lead on Sam Drain. So yeah, he's got a little cushion. I mean, like you guys said, it's there's going to be issues. Racing's racing, and he got away with one on Sunday, but man, it's shaping up to be a good one, because I think there's five maybe 6 guys that could pull through and win, depending on where we're at. So yeah, stoked on Twins Cup. Let's move to Super Sport again. Spicy.
It's big. This is big.
Spicy. We'll start this thing with Kayla took a pole, her first ever pole in pro racing. That was cool to see. I mean, just a flyer of a lap. That was great to see. And then race 1, obviously Darren Bender gets his first win in the US. Heron made a mistake. I think we would have saw, similar to what we saw on Sunday. It seemed like he got in deep into 12 and the rear wheel came up. He had to release the brake a little bit, and he runs wide. But yeah, man, it's getting spicy. Hayes was up there in race 1. I thought for sure I was sitting around with Taylor Knapp watching, and I was like, dude, Hayes in this position, smelling blood. I'm pretty sure there's no counting him out. And then he unfortunately put himself on the ground in turn 1. It was cool to do an interview with him. He was, pretty upfront and honest. He's like, look, I didn't have the race winning pace, but I had pace to contend, and I was stoked on it. He said at this point, after the year he had last year, he was just happy to be on TV again. So that was funny to see. But yeah, so it ended up being Bender and Ty Scott at the front. Ty Scott, again, consistency. He was up front both races. Bender wins. Ty Scott gets second. Blake Davis takes third over Kayla. And Heron ran it all the way down to 7 seconds from the lead and finished P5 after running off. He was outside the top 20 on lap 2. So a lot of pace coming from that Ducati. Race 2 was mixy again. Heron just kind of said that it it was mixy enough for him to just settle back and say, okay, cool. I know I have pace. I don't know if you guys caught it, but he's like down the back straightaway, looking over at Binder, sitting up in the middle of the straightaways. Like you could tell he had some pace going. So yeah, that was interesting to see. And then sure enough, he pulled the pin there at the end after a good little battle with Binder and dropped to 27.5 to break the lap record with 2 laps to go. And yeah, Bender went with him for the first round into the 27s, did a 27.9, and then yeah, Josh went 27.5, and that was kind of it. So yeah, it was good to see those two kind of go head to head. I think there's definitely some underlying stories across the board here that that are interesting. I mean, Yamaha clearly dealing with trying to get that swing arm figured out. I know they were dealing with some gearing issues, so curious to see how that comes about.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I watched a ton of Super Sport this weekend. It's one of the classes I got to watch the most of, just being off. I got a lot to talk about, to be honest. Like, first, I think, Kayla's pole position, if you watch the lap from what MotoAmerica posted, it looks so easy, right? And
Yeah.
for me, I was like, wow, she has won with this bike. We know she's done a ton of riding in the off season, and she looks extremely comfy. And I think this is just the start. I think she's going to go fast and everywhere. And I think it's only a matter of time before she actually, really, really pulls in a win off. I think it's going to be tough against Heron and Binder specifically, because I think that they have a little bit, Binder, the world championship experience, and Heron just, we know that 4 lap sprint speed that he can pull at the end. It looked like he had that back. In race, I believe it was race 1 on lap 1, Darren Binder down under the brakes into turn 10 from 5th to 1st was absolutely unreal. And then the way he was knifing people in turn 12 was kind of the same thing we saw at a Chavi on that Warhorse bike. And it sounds like they just have Atlanta dialed. He also looked like he had straight line speed on the other Ray Hall Ducatis. So it tells you that, for me, that Warhorse still is in that program heavily, and that I think they're going to be the favorites for top speed, in my opinion. Couple other call outs. Ty Scott, really good job, right? He's had a really, rough, I would say, year last year. Everybody knows he's got the speed, but it's nice to see Suzuki back at the front. It's nice to see him off the ground and to have some really, really good speed. It's great to see that he's looks more comfortable, at the front, especially with Binder and Heron. Hayes, amazing to see. I think that he was a standout in race 1. I think the pace was a little bit slower. I think everybody knew after the race 1 that the pace of race 2 was going to be a lot faster with what Heron did, being in the low 28s. That race was kind of slow. 29.0, 28.8 was not what I think people expected. And I think Binder really controlled that race, really, really good. And then speaking with Hayes, actually afterwards, he said in turn 1 that he was going to the gas so early, and it looked like one of his strongest places on the track, so early that he, before he even hit the apex, that he was already neutral throttle. And this year, what I noticed is if you were a little bit wider, there was like a little patch there that got a little bit. It seemed like it got a little greasy, and it caught a lot of people out. Yeah, and then finally for me is Heron, right? Like Heron showed again, why what he can do on a motorcycle. Um, I was a little nervous going through the weekend. I wouldn't say nervous, but for his pace, didn't look like unreal. I didn't see 27s out of him. The 28 that he did in qualifying looked difficult, but this just goes to show you, Josh Heron, when he, grits his teeth, he can pull some pretty phenomenal stuff out. We saw it last year at Road America on the Ducati and, other places. And I think for me, beating Binder like that was a real statement ride, to be able to set the lap record. And I think the big call out is that Binder actually hit his kill switch, and that's the reason why, he fell back. So sorry to kind of eat that one up on you, Corey, but I feel like I watched a lot of super sport this weekend. I was actually really like I would thought about multiple times like, man, I want to be out there in super sport. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that. That's what I figured because they have a little on-off switch on their like on the front of their tank, which is really, if you think about it, not a great spot for an on-off
Yeah.
switch. And going up over the curbs there, does it turn 6, right?
5.
5 coming out of 5, like, yeah, I can see how that could happen pretty easily. So as soon as I saw him looking down, that's kind of what I figured. I didn't know for sure, but yeah, that's got to be a tough way because I think he would have had a shot. Like I think he would have done something pretty bold down off the back straightaway. Just like his Binder's braking ability was pretty unbelievable all weekend. I thought a lot like you said, like very similar riding style to Xavi, and I don't know if they're riding a similar setup bike or not, but definitely see that was a strong part, almost to the point where it was a little bit frustrating that he didn't pick up on what Heron was doing in some spots, because it was pretty obvious that Heron would kind of back up a little bit and just focus on the exits, like onto the back straightaway. Heron was just absolutely destroying them, and for sure the Warhorse bike was faster. So it was like if Darren just figured out like don't charge that corner so much and kind of roll with Heron, like it was interesting to see him not adapt as much as I thought he would. To ride behind Heron, which I mean, obviously he dropped the pace once Heron got in front, which was cool to watch on Sunday. Like I thought Heron was just basically gonna, fuck with him the whole race, and then at the last second just absolutely put the hammer down, which he did. But I think without that kill switch incident, I think it would have been a lot closer. So it was nice to see somebody go with him, and definitely was frustrating for Kayla. I think I'm sure she was very frustrated knowing her after the race on both days, just that she couldn't really capitalize on that pole. But still, I mean, that's like history breaking, first female to secure a pole in AMA, MotoAmerica, whatever you want to call it, history. So I think it just kind of goes to show like she's not fucking around this year. So it's pretty cool to watch for sure. And I think I don't think Atlanta's like a good track for her even as well, So I think going to some of these other tracks this year is going to be really impressive. I think, I mean, that first segment on any bike really, but a super sport bike is tough. Super bike as well, but super sport bike like through there going side to side like that, like everybody fights with arm pump. So for her to make it through there and do what she did was impressive. So
she's clearly been putting in the work. Clearly,
yeah. For sure. Definitely Blake Davis, I think, was probably the biggest surprise of the weekend for me. Was like, I'm a fan of his. I think he's a good kid. And I think, as far as the future of the sport, he's kind of one of the guys you have to, keep an eye on. So I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's a swing arm thing. Cause I've heard Josh Hayes say like the bike's gotten better since they did the swing arm. Like he's on the other end of the spectrum. He says as soon as I took that thing off, he went faster or felt better. So maybe it's just a little bit of a, Josh knows his way around a bike and can dial it in a little bit quicker. And Blake doesn't have that experience to know what he needs to make the bike work with the shorter swing arm. Cause it's like 40 mil, right? I think is the difference. What I heard. Like that, can you imagine 40 millimeter difference is massive.
It's massive.
Yeah.
So I'm sure definitely not the bike Blake's used to riding, but
yes. Yeah. So I talked to Blake after both races. The first one, and Greg and JP mentioned this in the broadcast, he was running out of gear, right? So I don't know if they're having an issue where, gearing isn't fitting in swing arm, what that looks like. Obviously you're running into chain length, issues when you're trying to get the right geometry. I don't know if they were setting it up one way and not the other. I don't know what that throws in the mix, but that was definitely one thing that I saw was like, he was clearly, and JP called it out specifically. He was for sure down a little mile an hour hitting the rev limiter. So then in race 2, he had a bike issue. I didn't really get to hear what that issue was, but it was clearly substantial enough to make it tough for him to get through. So
I was wondering on that. He was doing like 30s or something at one point, which is totally not his MO. But the other thing I thought was super impressive was Aiden Sneed.
Same.
Best finish on the weekend for him, and he improved all year last year throughout the year. I think getting on the bike he's on now is a little more reliable and probably a little bit more of a neutral bike to ride, the Suzuki versus the MV Agusta. So yeah, it was nice to see him up there. And I know he's worked a lot with Jason Pridmore as well on just riding stuff, and you can see kind of him evolving. And I think he's a great kid too. So yeah, it's nice to see just some of these youngsters up there. I think honestly,
Yeah.
you know, you got Brad and Josh kind of setting the bar, I suppose, and everyone else has to kind of get up there and meet it.
Dude,
With the exception of Tyler Scott, I feel like this is his year. He's got to either kind of shit or get off the pot, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and he's right there. Well, points right now, Heron leads with 61. He's 3 ahead of Darren Binder, and Ty Scott is 5 back from that. Kayla's 19 back further in 4th, and Blake Davis is 5th with 25 points back. So they're right in the mix.
Yeah, just to speak on Blake Davis, you know, if that swing arm is 40 mil longer, you know, it's not going to turn as well, right? Like it might be good in some of the longer corners, the fast stuff, but going through that first sector is going to be tougher, right?
It's shorter. I'm pretty
40
sure.
mil shorter.
Yes. Yeah.
So
They had a longer swing arm.
They had a longer one, so it's made it twitchy, or maybe you know. But that's interesting to hear the gearing. It's interesting to hear the gearing, right? And this reason it sounds like either the Ducati, you know, whereas last year Matthew controlled the races, right? And controlled things with, you know, how he rode with corner speed and things. Now it sounds like the Ducati has the upper hand of controlling the race, right? And yeah, the Ducati can still have good corner speed, but the torque out of it, Corey, you know, is so different than, you know, the Yamaha, right? Even though the R9's got more torque now, you know, it sounds like they're chasing some sort of either gearing where it's either got to be too short because they're trying to go with the Ducati, or they can't quite have the corner speed they had in previous year, so they can't make that longer gearing work. And you know, coming from just, you know, the bagger and Harley, the gearing is so critical, right? Like for us, we're always chasing how short can you go to be able to do it. So I could totally see that being, you know, a tough thing for Blake, and knowing where he came from, you know, literally on the cusp of like, hey, he was going to be a championship favorite this year, to go through a bit of this struggle is tough to see and watch, but I think it's going to be good for him. Like, I think when he gets through this, he's going to understand how to build a better package and a better bike. And I think this is going to help him if he does, you know, eventually go superbike.
The other one have to kind of be bummed for is DeMario. You know, I mean, I think you know, my bad luck is continuing on on that bike. I think for him, unfortunately, I felt bad. I texted his crew chief Brian, who was my guy last year, and was like, "Sorry, dude. I think maybe you need to paint that bike a new color or something. I'm not sure what's going on." But it was tough to watch. Yeah,
all weekend he had good speed, and he looked good.
Yeah, it was just a write off, I guess, on that crash in race 1, and then I don't know, something just, you know, when you have to build a bike like that from scratch.
He did tell me he was nursing a little bit of injury too from that crash. So curious to catch up with him and find out, you know, how it all shakes out. But yeah, he was sore, but he said it wasn't affecting him too much riding. Just, I mean, you know how it goes. You get something nagging at you, it changes things. So yeah, Supersport, man. My final thought on Supersport would be that, like you were saying a little bit, James, that the iron at the front to sharpen your stone on is Binder and Heron, 2 of, you know, some of the best to do it, really. And it's definitely going to be one of those years where if Blake can get up there and fight, he's got some really good talent to sharpen against. So stoked to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I think, and also we should give a shout out to Torrin Collins. You know, he's been in quite a bit. He's been grafting hard. He's been riding a lot. He's been doing the Canadian Championship. He got 7th in race 2. You know, in front of Hayes, Doyle, Davis. You know, and I think that's a pretty good result for him. You know, he seems like he's been grinding, just kind of checking out some of the results, and I think it's good to see some different names creeping into the top, you know, into the top 10.
Yep. Ryder Davis, another one, right?
Yeah.
Like Ryder Davis, I've seen him ride for years on minis and things, and got a ton of talent. They're obviously trying to sort out that new Ducati. But yeah, I mean, good to see him just charging through the pack. He did a good little run. I think he was like back near 12th or 13th toward the start of that race. So good to see him charge up and have a good go at it. So
It's next Superbike.
shall we jump into Superbike? Yeah, we were all curious if Cam Beaubier was going to be the guy, and then all day Friday we're like, oh no, it's going to be a Cam runaway, and then all hell breaks loose on Saturday, literally all day long, qualifying the race. It was quite a bit of drama and chaos. Beaubier ends up 20th on the grid.
Like what?
You're walking
Crazy.
all the way back. You never could have scripted it, which it was really interesting. Just the whole vibe of it all. I was kind of blown away that we were getting robbed of, seeing everybody up front all at once, but I also kind of liked it selfishly. But yeah, race one, Skulls got out front and got comfy early. And Fong and SDK settled into second and third, right? Beaubier worked his way up to like 11th early on. And then we started seeing him looking down at his boot. There was oil, apparently. Red flag flies as Bobby Fong crashes. Not red flag for Bobby Fong. This is a whole topic in and of itself. The Bobby not being able to re-enter, but so Bobby crashed right before the red flag, and it was deemed that he was not attempting to re-enter the race, and he was basically forced to retire. Right, so they got the bike back together in the red flag. Weird deal there. I know there were conflicting opinions on whether that was right or wrong. I have my own. I'll save them. But yeah, they restarted. We got a 12-lap kind of burner of a race. Skoltz just checked out again. It was clearly his day. He was riding so well all weekend. SDK was in second, and Beaubier made a charge, honestly, which was crazy. With 5 to go, he passed JD for third. And then he comes over the hill, down the back straightaway, gets a ton of head shake, almost full tank slapper, spreads the pads, goes down into 10A. No brakes, runs it through. So good on him for being able to keep it up for one. But yeah, it must be absolutely terrifying to come down in there with no brakes. So yeah, he ends up, let's see here. What else happens in this race? It was pure chaos. So Beaubier blows through, and then Beach's clutch goes. Must have just been from 2 starts. Another topic that we can kind of cover was the Yamaha clutches over the weekend. Super interesting. But Beach's clutch goes out, leaving Beaubier and Cam Peterson to fight for the final step of the podium. And in the end, it's Skoltz by 7 seconds, SDK and Cam securing the final step of the podium. So with 5 to go, Beaubier made a pass for third on JD, had a pretty good swap over the hill down the back straightaway, and backed the brake pads out just enough to sail it off through 10A and 10B. So that set him back a little bit. And then, yeah, Beach's clutch goes out and he drops out, leaving Beaubier and Cam Peterson to fight for the final step of the podium. And in the end, Skoltz wins by 7 seconds over SDK and Cam Beaubier. Cameron Peterson ends up 4th and Uribe ends up 5th. Race 2, kind of similar deal. Skoltzy up front, set the pace with Bobby Fong. SDK made his way into 3rd. And the trio kind of just jumped out 3 seconds over JD, and that was about halfway. Beaubier again rips through the field. I was telling him that I wish we could have a camera just on him, and same for Heron when Heron made his way back through. Like, some of the passes just had to be wild. 3 to go, it was all Fong and Skoltz. They cleared off at the front. And we were kind of looking at a showdown for the win. Unfortunately, Skoltzy kind of encountered some issues with 2 to go, and Fong got away at the front. Ends up being Fong with the win. Skoltz in 2nd, SDK in 3rd. Beach takes 4th, and Peterson ends up 5th after the penalty over Beaubier. But yeah, Superbike, boys. It was full of drama this weekend.
I think I don't know. What did anyone get to the bottom of what actually happened with Skoltzy?
Yeah, it was the same thing as JD clutch. So so they've been having, I guess, some issues. I spoke with Strack. They said it was new going into it. So yeah, same. Literally, from what Anthony you said that they were having some issues, and that's what happened to JD in race 1, and it happened to Matthew in race 2. The good thing is at least Matthew finished.
Yep.
But honestly, can we just talk about the whole weekend? Superbike is here. Like, we finally have Superbike back in America. I remember looking at FP2 or FP1 and the top like 8 were within a second, 1.5. And I'm like, we're back, boys. We are back. It's nice to see. It's good to see all the competitive bikes, competitive riders, see some new names. But very interesting for me, the crashes. A lot of weird crashes through the weekend, a lot of uncharacteristic crashes. PJ's was very, very weird to me. Almost, don't want to put words in his mouth, looked like kind of he was riding a 600 for a second, and that thing just bit, like, can't get away with, it just looked like 600 riding, and the thing just was wheeling and tying itself in knots at that part, and super shamed to see, because it looked like he finally got just a little bit of bump of pace that he needed. I guess the standout is Corey's guy, Matthew. That guy, stepped up. I don't really understand the electronics that he continues to talk about. That they have new electronics that they have. I don't really understand what that is. But I guess for a new team like Strack Racing and Superbike, Matthew I think we talked about it, for me to get kind of look super calm out there. I think people need to be worried. Like, he's got a point to prove. He looks unreal, and it looked like Bob had his hands full.
Yeah, I totally agree. The electronics thing, just real quick, Corey, before you jump in, I know there was a bit of separation between Attack and Strack between the last test and the first round. Kind of forced their hand on, a little bit of figure it out on your own terms. It seemed like. I don't know what the relationship is or what all of that. That was just the baseline information that I heard over the weekend. So they were kind of figuring it out a session at a time. I'm sure they had it figured out a little bit before too, but yeah, that's the electronics that they're talking about.
Yeah, I did hear about that. I heard there was a little bit of a divorce that happened.
What? How?
Yeah.
Already?
I don't know if you noticed. I don't think there's any Attack stickers on that bike this weekend.
Nope.
Yeah. So yeah, something must have went down, which is really interesting. I mean, I'd love to be curious to know what Yamaha's take on that is, as they're both, supported Yamaha teams and whatnot. So definitely interesting, but also I'm sure the Strack guys are kind of like, pretty stoked with their weekend, considering whatever drama must have went down. So I just went through and I looked at all the sanctions. I don't see anything for Cambobier, so it's really peculiar that they didn't put anything out as far as the sanction goes. James, are you on fucking Instagram?
I was just looking at Strack to see if there was any pictures of Attack on the bike, because you said that. Because I thought I saw Attack on the side of the bike already.
I don't know. I know in the past they did. It was pretty big in the past, I thought, but I couldn't see anything from what I saw.
It was on the leathers, but it was not on the bike from what I could tell.
So I'm kind of here for it.
Same, I am too. But I think in the long run, it'll be interesting to how that really plays out. Because like, you would think when you would bet on Yamaha would eventually be able to supersede because they have the direct line. But dude, Strack, they run a tight program over there. They have got the funding. They know what they're doing. They've got great people underneath their tent. I mean, 2-time Super Sport champs, and it looks like they came out firing, and their bike looks, as good as anything.
Yep. Yeah. No, Matthew looked great. I mean, him through that first segment, he's always unreal up there at the top of the hill. If you can make it to a race to watch that, just that section alone is so impressive.
I stood at the top of the hill. I walked the back way to get to the inside of the kind of the wheelie hill in turn 5. And the session had just started. I just stood there for like 4 or 5 laps, 45-minute session. I'm just like, dude, how, what on earth? It's crazy to see in a class like that, like someone visibly faster. It doesn't really happen a lot, right? Like I end up shooting a bunch in the same spots, and it's like to see someone come in and you're like, oh, that guy's visibly faster. Doesn't necessarily happen at the sharp end of the superbike class, but yeah, he rips through there. It's epic.
Yeah, but just how
Yeah.
easily he did it lap after lap. I mean, like
Yeah.
when you watched him both races, clearly would be interesting to understand if a Ducati was actually like really, really in that fight. Like if Camby was firing on all cylinders and have to come back. But I don't know, man. Like, dude just looked like he was on a different track. And, Road Atlanta specifically is all about flow. Like you've got to have it. And the people that have it, like Matthew, look super easy. For the people that don't have it, like myself, it looks super difficult. So, like I can tell you firsthand of like the difference there is worth a lot of time. And it just you can, like you said, Anthony, you can clearly see like coming through the first sector he looked like Hayden. It just looks like they're on a different track and they have different grip levels. I think he's a force. I think he's going to be a force the whole year. I think Matthews here. I think they're going to go to Barber, and that's another track that he's going to be super strong at. I don't necessarily think the Ducati is going to be like a standout. I don't know. It's short, and when you can roll through, I really, really believe that he's coming into it. I didn't know, but now I feel like he can be a championship contender, for how chill he was riding. Now, I really do like what Bob did. Bob was just top 3 every single session. Didn't you never he never I never saw him on TV like, you know, he went under the radar for me, and I think that's
Yep.
exactly what Bobby Fong needs to do. Is just be under the radar, be there. He's just consistent 1, 2, 3 the whole time, every session, and
Yep.
when he's gonna start
Say
firing,
that, but he tossed that thing down the road, dude.
he did,
He
He
did
tossed
have
which
that
was
thing down
Travis.
the road.
very
That was
which was weird for me. Like I was like not expecting that.
Yep.
yeah, yeah. I mean, really though, were you not like
Well, I
after
thought it was
the year
I
ended last year?
yeah, but I thought it would did it have anything to do with the oil that Cam laid or just by himself? Because I just saw
That's a
him in the
good
trap.
question. Good
Yeah,
question. Couldn't
I
tell
don't
you.
know. It was definitely seemed like he had kind of started to put a charge forward, and then of course like just like that, and it was like fuck again,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So, but
And
I think that whole thing with the not allowing him to restart thing is interesting. I mean, he definitely walked away. Like you could see him; he was not planning on going back to his bike until the red flag came out. And I think I don't know. It's kind of hard to argue against that. He's been on the other side of that, right? Like a long
Yep.
time ago now, but
yeah.
it's be different if he was like stuck in the sand trying to get out,
Yep.
and then it got red flag. Like I don't know.
I understand was the argument that was being made was that he was told to leave the bike by the corner workers. That was what I heard on pit lane. So
Well, that's naughty then.
yeah.
I think the other thing that was surprising to me was like I don't know. I just thought Cam on the Ducati was going to get like a 6 start and be
Yeah.
right there like off the jump. I thought for sure he'd be top 8 like off the line, and I don't know if he just hasn't figured out the starts on that thing yet. But he was like it took him a while to get going coming
Yeah.
through the field, and maybe he was playing it safe. But I thought within a lap he'd be up in the top 8 for sure.
Same. I in agreement with you. I thought he was just going to be like lap 2. Everyone's going to be like, oh, Campbell BA's in P3 charging through. And just every lap, he just did one bike, one bike, one bike, and just kind of. It also was weird weekend for me with Cam. Like he started, and I was like, "Yeah, he's here. Like it ain't no
Yep.
way he got a shot." But then like it just kind of. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I just got weird vibes from Cambobier. Like, it didn't get like. Again, I didn't talk with him all weekend, but just watching him, like he would throw the laps in, he'd be up there, but it didn't just look maybe easy or like he looked like certain times he would just go like really uncomfortable and like and I don't know what that really is like especially like once he got like race 1 I think was more of a charge, but like race 2 just kind of I mean I don't know, I don't really know what to think. I think he's gonna be fine like, but also that bike, I will say at certain points on the track did some fucking sketchy shit. Like, down the back straightaway, he went over one time over the second bump, and then it just started head shaking crazy. Like, definitely that bike is super weird with the aerodynamics and how it is reacting with the Dunlops and all that
Yep.
jazz, and it almost seemed like he didn't know what he was gonna get from time to time and kinda just rode, for me, at, like, 90%. Like, he
Yep.
let it looked like he w let he there was a lot in the bag.
Yeah, kind of looked like Cam, BMW Cam, where it was just kind of like if he had it, he did it. He could. I think the times he was doing was just him being Cam riding on talent, but I don't think he was like confident enough to do it lap after lap. And I think once he gets comfortable in that thing, it's going to be scary because obviously it's there. You know what I mean? Without having any time on it. So I think the other interesting thing too is I don't know if you guys heard about the swing arm recall on all those things, but all
Yeah.
the World Superbike spec factory Ducatis had their swing arms recalled during the World Superbike round, and then also, like I'm pretty confident. I saw Cam's mechanic taking the swing arm, or PJ's mechanic taking the swing arm off their bike on Instagram. So
Yep.
it kind of makes you wonder. I mean, I know the force values on the swing arms on the stock street bike are crazy low, and I think I don't know. I mean, I know they beef up the factory spec swing arms, but they're having some kind of issue where they're cracking. So it kind of gives you an idea of how much flex must be going through that bike.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious. You could see some of that looked for Benjamin Smith as well. Like there's some moments where you're like, wow, that looks a little more challenging to ride than you're used to seeing out of a Ducati. Um, with that in mind, though, I think it was pretty impressive to see Cam Peterson like right up there right away. And I think I was a little worried about that program and how they were going to get on with a new bike and not having I don't know. I wasn't there. You guys could tell me. I don't think there was ever really a factory Ducati person over there, right? They didn't have a Corsa guy.
I wasn't there. I wasn't around enough to know.
Yeah. From
Neither
what I
was
heard,
I.
they weren't going to have anything other than some help from Simone, who is kind of like the Ducati Corsa representative in the U.S. So he kind of lives under the Warhorse tent. So I don't think he's over there probably too much helping
Yep.
during the sessions, at least.
But what was crazy to see though is when Cam went by him over at a turn 5, the difference. And when Cam went by Beach, the Yamaha, definitely the electronics, putting the power to the ground, coming up over turn 5, which is, for people that don't know, is notorious. You just wheelie like all the way down, and if they didn't have anti wheelie, they'd be like quarter throttle on those things like the whole way, or just smashing rear brakes. So, but to see Ducati of the Warhorse Ducati, like just drive by people. Like specifically, that was the most noticeable spot for me was coming up over the hill where your electronics have to be Gooch. Like you have to be
Yeah,
Gucci to get the most power, not cut and this, that, and the other. And that, bodes well for later in the season when they, have these tight corners or they really have to get the power to the ground. So, but it was awesome to see Cam Peterson. Another one for me that kind of went under the radar, but was in the radar. Like always, kind of just always there. And I think that guy, we all know Cam P has got tons of talent and can be at the front. Like he's proven it on everything he's got on. For me, it was awesome to see, you know, not maybe take that extra little step and throw it on the ground and was just there and just brought home solid, awesome, great results. And I'm so stoked that everything worked out and he, had such a good start to his season.
Yeah, for
totally.
sure.
Totally agree
For
on
sure.
that. Just looking at the results here too. So the top six all were in the mid to low 24s, all the way back to Cam P. But then there's a pretty big drop off, which is still a little bit of a bummer to see. And hopefully that gap kind of closes. Like you go from 16 seconds to lead to 33 seconds to lead
Yeah.
for seventh place. So I know it looked like Hayden had a little bit of a frustrating weekend on the Honda, to be expected to an extent. But
Yep.
I think I was most surprised with Richie Escalante. Like I don't know what was going on over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Poppy
Yep.
just he was struggling all weekend.
Yeah, the Suzukis were struggling. Brandon, I think, started strong on Friday, was quite up
Mm-hmm.
there, and I was very impressed with the pace that he had early. But as everything seemed to, get dialed in, the boys made that step. especially into the 23s, and then race pace low 24s, mid 24s. And you could see that the refinement in Superbike for Ducatis, Yamahas, and BMWs was just, over the top of everybody. Surprising for me, surprise takeaways was Benjamin Smith. I thought he did really well in race one until he crashed, which was a bummer, but then did well in race two. Interesting to see Uribe. I saw that crash into turn one, which was odd for Uribe. Like, I don't know. I guess in recent years, I just don't really see him as much of a crasher. So that one was quite odd, especially in turn one, of all places. And then of course the PJ crash was a bummer. Was a bummer.
Was
One bike,
yeah.
one bike
It
on the
was
grid. Yeah.
it was interesting to talk to Ben. He said they found something overnight on Friday and didn't really tell me what it was, but he was like, I'm just really impressed with what I saw out of PJ on the setup we had on Friday. And I was like, oh, okay. And so then to have PJ come out and have that happen to him, I was a little bummed for him because they seem to have some momentum rolling into Saturday morning. So yeah, it was just a bummer to see it in a massive crash.
Did you say that Benjamin Smith saw what PJ was doing on, like, do they
Ben
have shared
Spies.
data?
Ben
Ben
Spies.
Ben
Spies.
Spies.
Okay.
Yeah. They clearly had found something. And yeah, he just got caught out. Like you said, it was.
You can see that Ducati though, man.
Deal.
It's like, I will say, I got some words from, Bradley still does a bunch of track days and stuff in Europe, and he said he was out there at Valencia with Center Aegis, who was on a V4, and when he was talking to him, this just a little nugget. He was like, "Hey, you pushing?" And he's like, yeah, kind of, but he goes, "You can't. This thing just ties itself in knots." Now, it just kind of see when I look at both Camby and the crash of PJ, when that thing starts to tie itself in knots or they try to ride over the limit, it looks bad. It looks rough. And that could be of how soft they're trying, the chassis, the swing arm, trying to gain grip, for the world stage and whatnot. And when you try to, do and ride over the limit or kind of push that, it looks very, very difficult.
Yeah. It was interesting to watch on Friday as I was shooting and then looking back through the footage over the last couple of days. Those Ducatis seem really, really, really planted until they're not. Like the clips are either dead straight, everything's settled in slow-mo, or they're like, wah, 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 like just battling it out. So there, I don't know if there's like, and it's something that I'm going to ask the guys at Barber, like, is there a fine line that you're dealing with where it's like, it's good until exactly this point, and then it's all bets are off. It's tying itself in knots. There's nothing I can do with it. And what does that look like? Because, yeah, it just seems I noticed it in the footage, so it's funny to hear you say that. Like, it definitely is on or off, whether it's planted or not. So, yeah,
Totally.
it's
totally could see that. I think also it was interesting. I was just looking at some of those penalties, like going back and looking. I know we haven't touched on Superbike Cup stuff, but there were some interesting things that went on. It looks like in the back of the field there. I know there was a little takeout action, I think, on race 2 between Dumas and who was it? Danilo Lewis, I'm pretty sure. Got cleaned out last corner, last lap. But Danilo also happened to get disqualified from race 1 for 2 different reasons. Cool. It looks like coolant in his engine, and then also another issue as well. And then I saw Dion Campbell got disqualified for not adhering to a black flag. So kind of interesting because you don't really see DQs, like full DQs for like non-tech infringements too often. So, shout out to those guys, the Bad Boys Club. But I think having Alex Dumas, I wanted to give him a shout out. Was cool to see him back in the paddock.
Yep.
I know we talked about him testing, but they made a kind of a last minute random switch to a Honda from the BMW, which was like, I had no idea until I realized that he's not racing, or wasn't racing Superbike. He was racing Superbike Cup on a Honda opposed to their shabby BMW. So kind of curious if that's a year-long thing or what the deal is, but will be interesting to see.
Yeah, another person I didn't get to talk to, but yeah, it seems. I mean, they have Shibe Racing Jones Honda on here, so I'm wondering if it's not one of the bikes of Ashton Yates last year. I'll dig into that when we get to Barber, or maybe a little bit before.
Total bummer for Ashton Yates. You know, he's. I think that's somebody. I think this was going to be a breakout year for him. Everything was lining up. He looked good on Supermoto bike. He looked good on anything he's tested last year. He finished the season amazing. And to have that, a crash and now he's kind of hurt is a bummer for me. I was really looking forward to see, the Honda and then him going against, Gillum, because I think that's one of those things where if he could beat Gillum, I think it would give him a ton of rider market credibility because everybody knows how strong Gillum is. And then was really good, feel good for me was JD. I think JD had a solid weekend, showed his potential again. I think everybody can just take the JD crashing bad superbike JD and just put it back in that cupboard. We don't need to talk about it. Guy can do it on one of the most physical tracks. And I think it was just awesome to see him up there.
Yeah, for sure. For me, the call out was I chatted with Brandon Pash at the end of the weekend, and he charged through that little crew that was running. I think it's like 11 to it's Uribe, Escalante, Smith, and Hayden Gillum. There was like a little pack of them, and yeah, he put his head down and said he was finally feeling like, he was riding the bike at its potential. So good to hear that. Good for BP.
I think it'd be good to see if you can kind of keep that momentum. I saw it at
same.
Laguna, where he was like, holy crap, who is this dude? And then he had that little crash in turn 10B. He's just had those little weird crashes, and then he has this, like a performance. You're like, whoa, where'd that come from? So it'd be awesome to see if he can just keep the momentum rolling. I know it's going to be hit or miss just on the Suzuki, but it would just be nice to see that, like that good feeling roll to the net, to Barber.
Agreed. Anything else Superbike related? We've covered the swing arm.
Dude, Andrew Lee wins the first race of the year. I think that's probably on he's now done it on 3 different bikes, Cowie, BMW. Now he's on the charge again on a Honda. When's this guy going to get a real shot? Like, I think it's good to see, hopefully he can keep it up, but I will say dude looks good. Like the Honda, the suit, everything looks the part.
Yeah, finished 8th on race 1, which that's in the money too on the Honda thing. The way that the structure of the payouts work for the Superbike Cup is really interesting. From what I understand, they have their own kind of separate pool of purse, as well as obviously the Superbike Cup, money that they make, and then Honda has its contingency. So from a money perspective, it's a good weekend for Andrew to get up in the top 10 on a Honda. And the Superbike Cup deal. I think the only other thing I wanted to touch on that was interesting, just kind of going back and looking at like last year's Stock 1000 times. It looks like Jason and Andrew both did 25.9s last year, and it looks like nobody in Superbike Cup got into the 25s even. So definitely a little bit slower pace back there compared to what they were doing on those BMWs. But interesting to see also the difference between Jason Uribe on the Superbike now, basically 5/10 faster than he went on the stock 1000 bike, which kind of, we talked about that a little bit on the pre-race. Like it's not as simple as bolting on a bunch of parts and just hopping on a Superbike and going a lot faster. You definitely have to learn how to make those things go around the track. So,
another one note on Uribe while we're at it, he's nursing an injury as well, dealing with some broken bones in the hand. So.
What'd you say?
Something that I don't. He just told me broken bones in the hand, had it wrapped up, and
that's bad.
Not a great place to ride a super bike with some broken bones in your hand. That's for sure.
SDK, did we talk about him?
We kind of glossed over double podium SDK, which we should not be doing.
No.
That kind of speaks to that sneaky level of consistency. He's going to be right there. He told me during our debriefs on Road Race Report, he told me, he wasn't happy with the third in race 1 at all. He wasn't. He was like, I don't feel like, I wasn't feeling good on the bike. I didn't really feel like I deserved a third. He had some attrition that kind of got me there. And he said Sunday he felt like himself. He felt, like he had pace and was competitive, and it was a better showing from him. So yeah, 2/3 walking out of there, new team, new crew chief, getting back on the BMW. He was pretty stoked and has pretty positive outlook.
And to be honest, he in race 1 was just fast in all the right places, right? Like,
Yep.
he was good, he was fast at a turn 12, and then did his thing in sector 1, and then was good at a 7 to the back straightaway, good under braking. But you could see, like, when Camby came through a little bit, and then ran wide or whatever, he was definitely struggling. He was like best of the rest. Race 2 for me, he looked again kind of like that old SDK, definitely way more racy, like wanted to take shots, was in it. In race 1, he looked like he was on very big management mode, and just like, hey, counting down the laps, let's bring this thing home. And I think sometimes that's the mature thing to do. These races are super long, and we see races like start hard and then they die off and then go, and like you could in the middle have your big moment or in the end. And it's tough. I think it's tough for people when they're watching to really understand when you get your, like, you know, tire sensation, fuel where you like, or rhythm where you're like, oh, these next 5 are just, they felt so easy and the pace is there. And then your next 3, you're like, what the hell happened? Like, you got no rear tire, it's gone, something's happened. And I think that's super hard for people to see in Superbike, from watching from, their couch. And you just have to realize, like, 18 laps around Atlanta, with the same tires is extremely tough. And to confirm, they do have 2 brand new front tires, a 4 and a 6. So these front tires, they don't have the 7 anymore. They don't have like the tires that they were used to. So these are all things that's throwing in. And this is the first real, you can do all the testing you want at 18, 20 laps, but you're never going to have road Atlanta conditions with, patches and things of that nature. And I can tell you firsthand there in race 1, when it was super hot, the squirms were super quick. And then, you got to think race 2 was 20 degrees cooler. Right.
Yeah.
So, like, for people that weren't at Road Atlanta, the 20 degrees cooler, for me, the Dunlops typically perform way better in morning warm up and in the cooler conditions than in the super hot conditions from a feeling perspective, and like not having those weird crashes. So, just my 2
Yeah.
cents on it.
Yeah. No, that makes, I think, a lot of sense then when you take into account all the crashes for everyone that's on that tire. Because I think the construction is completely different as far as like the sidewall stiffness and things like that comparatively, from my understanding at least, from like the 3 to the 4, which the 3 is pretty much the tire that everyone used on the front, more or less. So yeah, definitely interesting. One other thing that I thought was, I'm kind of curious, did anyone actually get an answer if PJ is like actually hurt, or is he, what the deal is on that?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with him at dinner, not at dinner, but I saw him there. I guess the finger, I mean, I don't want to speak for him or anything, but I know he has a finger that's been before, and I guess that one just ripped open. And I think he had his hand wrapped. Don't want to speculate if anything's broken or anything, but I do believe he told me he was going to go get some x-rays and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
and I think the big thing why it was his, I think, I don't know if he had a concussion, but I think everybody saw that he probably was out a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know. I'd heard that maybe he was just going to try to ride, and then there was like a bunch of people kind of went against that and thought it wasn't a good idea. But there was, I don't know, the whole concussion protocol thing is definitely an interesting topic, as far as like standardization of it and what the deal really is. Because obviously he wasn't out for like a minute, right? It was like he hit the
No.
ground, and then by the time he was at the grass, he was already with it. So, but it's definitely,
I mean,
yeah, definitely interesting.
when he was talking to me, he looked very nonchalant over the finger stuff. Like, he was like, yeah, this happens every single time I seem to hit my hand and it opens up. It's no big deal. They put a stitch in it. So, like, there was no like panic. So I don't know.
Yeah, he was,
Yeah.
when I spoke to him, he was, confident and excited about the next rounds. He, this stuff happens. Just kind of breezed right through it. Again, same thing for me with the hand. He was like, yeah, it is what it is. This is what I deal with. So yeah, it seems like they're pretty confident heading into Barber that he's going to be as close to 100% as possible and shouldn't be far from it. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing PJ get a good crack at it. But yeah. Anything else, Superbike Cup?
No.
All right.
I think we're on to the last but not least, huh?
Last but not least, the baggers. Hayden Gillum doubled up. Dude, it just seems to be clicking for him and the Indian. I mean, Troy gave him a run for his money in race one. It was super close. It's a really good race, and honestly, and Bradley rode the wheels off that Harley to get third. Looked good. I mean, not necessarily right in the fight, but there was good pace there, which was good to see. Kyle Wyman had a really rough go this weekend, out in the first lap. We mentioned it earlier, but yeah, just turned 12, put it on the deck. And then in race two, it was all Hayden. Hayden Gillum just checked out at the front, ends up getting first in front of Rocco Landers, who got second, and Bradley again riding the wheels off the Harley. Ends up, I think it was like 2 or 3 laps to go. Troy got by him, and ended up being an Indian lockout on Sunday. So yeah, Vance and Hines has clearly got that Indian rolling pretty good. James, you went 6-6 on the weekend. I know one more thing to note on race 2 was Kyle had a mechanical issue on the outlap. I'm not 100% sure what it was or if it's been said what it was, but I know he was able to get it into pit lane and start from pit lane, ended up 7th. So, James, you went 6-6. What do you got for us, bagger wise?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be rude for me not to say that Hayden Gillum has got his hand on this thing at the moment. The Indian looks good. Benson Hines has done their work, and I mean, it's not even, you can't even just say like it's just in the speed traps, right? Like they are good around the corners as well, and they've done a good job. We saw it at Daytona. We now confirmed it here, and I think. I spoke with Hayden. I mean, he feels literally at one with this motorcycle. Whether it's, I don't think it's anything, but he doesn't feel like he's riding at 100% yet, which is, maybe scary for the rest of us. But, it's tough, right? Like, as a Harley rider and, a factory rider, like, that's not what we want to see. And we want to be in the fight more. And for me, the good thing is to see Bradley in that fight, right? Like Bradley, he absolutely rode amazing, especially in race 2. Race 1, yeah, the podium was good, but race 2 was really like he had some good pace. He rode his nuts off, man, and it was good to see. And it's good for me that that the it gives me something to work on, right? So even though we made big steps, it just still, we're behind him over there, but um yeah, I don't have much more than that. Than they've done their work. Their bikes are really, really good, and they, corners, straightaways, braking. It's they've done a good job. So the only good thing we have is we've got an amazing team for us, and it's back to work for Harley's home round, and we got 3 good riders that are looking forward to try to come back. So yeah, I mean, that's what I got from the bagger thing. From Kyle's perspective, we haven't had our team call, so I can't really give you any juice.
Yep. Corey, what do you think? I think from my side, it just seems like how it gets when a guy, like you said, James, is at one with a bike. It's everything's just clicking and feels right, and he just seems to click off lap after lap after lap at a just ridiculous pace. Speaks to him. It speaks to the team. What else did you see from the baggers this weekend, Corey?
Well, yeah, definitely Hayden kind of reminds me of what he did when he was on a tear in Stock 1000. Like once he kind of got comfortable, it's just like he's kind of a machine, and he's definitely a bulldog for sure. So when he's feeling good, it's a little scary, I think, for everyone. I think that bike looks just very rideable all around. Looking at the traps, I mean, you got to take that into account. Just when you have a bike that makes power, it makes everything else so much easier because you're not riding your nuts off everywhere else just to try to make up for a deficit. So like, all three of the Indians basically throughout the entire race were between 168 and 171, 172 miles an hour. If you look at Bradley, who was a top Harley, he was basically average 162 miles an hour. So 8 mile an hour difference average that's tough to overcome no matter how hard you're riding. And then it looked like, just looking at the splits, like whatever Hayden was doing in that first split compared to everybody else, which, dude's a big dude. He's got them guns. I'm sure he was muscling that thing around pretty well through that first segment. But he had, almost a half a second every lap to everybody in that first split, it looks like. So everywhere else, not too much of a difference split wise. Like Bradley was pretty on par with them for the most part in the second and third split. So I think you're just seeing a byproduct of a bike that is making some power and then, get Hayden on the thing, and it obviously makes a bit of a difference. Watching the race was cool to see Troy kind of pull out that time out of his ass. He looks like 29.0 was incredible. That at that point in the race as well, like you could tell he wanted it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Hayden just was just on a consistent fast pace, made it pretty difficult to compete with. Jimmy, you got something?
Yeah, I think even, one thing we didn't talk about was Herfoss crash in the challenge, kind of straight up and down. We had Kyle crash in turn 12, and we had Hayden crash, I was actually behind him, which was weird. It was like almost on the exit of turn 6. And it was a super weird crash. Again, we have, a US front and then a Japanese front as well you could pick from. And then the final thing I will say is that, when you just haven't done some stuff on the hooligan where you feel super comfortable, right? Like you can kind of, like for me, I was been able last year to jump on that bike and just feel really at home. Just you can see that he has that sort of style at the moment where old tire, new tire, morning warm up, whatever. He like can just put a lap in, at will. He gets 1 minute, there's a problem, bike break, like, he's on a big wave at the moment. I will say that there's still, from my point of view, Troy and Rocco don't quite have that yet with that. Being on the same bike, you can see that it still looks kind of hard. And Rocco's late race pace in race 1 didn't quite have what Bradley had. It had to come through. And then I think actually Herfoss had a problem, an electronical problem. I was behind him in the beginning of the race and he was having some issues. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But, you've got, I think, a interesting dynamic that could, unfold, right? Like pressure is going to start to build within that team. And then obviously the pressure that's going to build into with our team, right? I think there, is going to be some fireworks as we get to some more tracks as the championship starts to walk down the line and things start to become out of reach or in reach.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was interesting to see Sunday morning warm up. Like Hayden comes out, does an outlap, does a 20 whatever. Like it was the fastest lap of the session. It was 2 laps in the morning, and you're just like, okay, yeah, here we are. I think everyone else at the point was doing like a second and a half, almost 2 seconds off of that in that session. And I was just like, there it is. That's what it's like to feel like you can just swing your leg over it and get right back to speed. It's unmistakable feeling, as many of us know, that many of the listeners know, I'm sure, and you guys as well. Like you
just even post race, man, dude's having a beer, like, chilling, we're over here like, fuck, I don't want to eat a carb until Road America, like the swing is just fully, when you're on that wave, it's almost like you can do no wrong. So,
Yep. Yeah, he did say that. I asked him how he was feeling in the post race walk and talk to the press conference, and he was like, "Yeah, well, we're gonna ride it till we can because racing is going to be racing, and it's going to come time where this isn't the way it's going to be. So we're going to ride it until we can't anymore. So we'll see when that is. You guys obviously have a little break here. Yeah, it's I'm hoping, and I think we're all hoping for HD back in the fight come the next round. And this rivalry has been fun to follow for me from, doing the documentary stuff with the Indian side. And now that I'm getting to tell both sides of the story and have a blast doing that, I'm ready to tell both sides of the story and and have you guys battle it out. So hoping for more of that. I'm sure it won't be long. I know the team over there at HD is gonna not sleep until they're back at the front. So
Oh yeah.
and you're gonna be pedaling your ass off, getting towed around in Florida. I'm sure of that. So yeah, stoked to see it. I mean, look, man, overall, Road Atlanta, pretty solid. Drama, different faces popping up in almost every class. Yeah, it's good to see it. Good for the sport. I think it's in a really good spot. I think for my stuff, lots of positive energy around it. Lots of people very thankful and appreciative. And I'm very thankful and appreciative of all the support. And yeah, if I didn't get to you this weekend, I'm going to try to get to you next weekend. 6 classes or whatever it was a lot. I'm so sorry to build, train, race. I will tell your stories at some point. I'm just still a little underwater as a one-man show. But yeah, thanks to everybody, at least from my stuff personally. And yeah, looking forward to more. Looking forward to going to Barber and telling more stories and just continuing to build momentum. What do you guys got? Any closing thoughts?
Oh man, that's it. That's all I got for sure.
We're back.
I was gonna ask about the bagger guys. One last thing was the Saddlemen. The Saddlemen boys seem to be struggling, which was I knew you said that their bikes were pretty close spec to yours this year, or at least last year's spec, but yeah, they seemed a long way off. So that was kind of interesting to see. But yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, like like for sure coming from the World Cup, I thought that, I mean, from what I spoke to them at the World Cup because I was there, they learned a ton riding behind some of them guys, and then obviously being able to do things on the World Cup bike with some different tires and stuff, getting away with it. I thought that would translate, but Corey, like you come back to your bike here, different tires, different this, different track, not a European style, and I guess Coda isn't, but still big and wide, and I don't know. Interesting. I haven't really got the full debrief on Saddleman, but it was yeah, I thought for sure we would see them definitely closer to us.
Yeah. I golfed with those guys on whatever it was, the Wednesday before, and they were all good spirits, thinking, we've got some stuff we learned, we got some things that we're going to take into this weekend. We should be closer to the front. We should be closer to the front. And then I went over there Friday night and they were just like staring at me like, well, we're on the back foot. So they ran into some issues. And when you're in a class like that, you're already just a touch off, and you got the guys at the front going a second and some change faster than they went last year. And yeah, I mean, they ironed it out, but yeah, Corey West was, he was bumming, but at the same time, he's like, look, we're making progress. We're doing the thing. So yeah, I mean, that's just racing. Sometimes you show up and shit happens and you dig yourself out of the hole. And yeah, I know they're stoked to be going to the next round of Bagger World Cup. I think it's the same weekend, right? As
Road
America. So I did hear, and I don't know who it is. I'm going to try to dig this out from Saddleman, but they are going to have the bikes on the grid in King of the Baggers.
Yeah.
So stoked to see that. Stoked to see, I guess, 2 fresh faces in the Baggers. I don't know if it'll be people that have ridden before or not, but yeah, it should be something different.
No, it'd be sweet. I think we need the bikes on the grid. Like I think that's,
Yep.
and I think even when people have asked me from inside, who I would put on there, I put up some names that I think some fresh faces, right? Like I think some people that maybe even you wouldn't I guess expect. So, but from a Road Atlanta's perspective, I think it's awesome to see. I feel like this is the strongest start to a season that we've had from a hype and publicity. And, it feels like we are finally cresting that hill of like what road racing in America was to what road racing in America is. And I really believe that we're like on the cusp of being able to do some really cool things and, maybe break out a little bit. Like just the press conferences, the bikes, the teams, the semis, Vice TV, like all of it seems to be in a direction that we need to be in. Samsung Plus, whatever that is, the documentary from Arch, like it's all just going in the right way. Like everything
Yep.
and every
Yep.
class has got hitters in it. And I just really believe that we're fucking on the cusp of some really cool stuff. So I'm just hoping that it continues to roll.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just think you can feel it. And it's cool to be able to feel it again, right? Like you could feel the tension on Saturday between qualifying and the race. Like you're walking around, you're like, okay, there's people here. The
And people are
racing is going
talking.
to be tight, and
Yeah,
people,
Like there's people like talking shit. There's people like there's actual real storylines. There's people posting like on social media. Like people are following it, and
Yep.
I think for being in one of the most polarizing classes, I mean, dude, the comments that I have is crazy right now. Like, dude, we're getting fucking hammered over here. So whether you like it or not, it's people are watching.
Dude, yeah. I was getting there's some wild comms on all the Darren Binder stuff that I've posted. I'm like, yo, why is Darren Binder winning races and catching strays on the internet right now? Like what? So people are for sure.
Yeah, but dude, his turn
engaging.
12 passes were heavy.
Dude.
All right.
Him on the brakes, period. It's
but dude, he's gonna pull some of that Moto 2 stuff, and honestly, Aaron needs it. He needs somebody like a Binder to race against. Like it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, you can see the fireworks. You can see the fuse burning on the fireworks right now, and it's coming.
It's good.
Yeah,
cool.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for your time, dude. Looking forward to more of this. We'll try to do pre and post race every round. I may end up trying to sneak some like 30-minute post day in the rounds. Just throw it up on Spotify. This is what we learned today. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to be evolving from now to Barber and come up with a little stronger plan each round and keep chucking away at it. But that's it. We'll see you guys at Barber.
Cool. See you.